let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaining, feedism, and everything in their orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're continuing our series of dinner table talks. We've got a few guests here on the pod today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves one by one.
Hi there, everyone. Once again, the Captain Bara here for yet another episode of Thicc Radio. You may have heard me on one of my other 8 appearances on the podcast. Maybe the first one you could think of is the muscle gaining introduction, I guess, on Thicc Radio. But I'm glad to be back for today's discussion.
I'm prestonbrok. I go by Preston, your friendly neighborhood muscle bull, and looking for it.
I am thiccbro21. You can call me Thick. I was on the episode where we're talking about gaining and silicone, and I'm excited to be back.
Hey there, I'm Romaine Hogg. You can call me Romaine, and this is my inaugural appearance on the radio. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, so much for carving out time in your busy calendars to be here today, because, of course, today we are delving a little bit into, I guess a muscle focus, you could say, but mostly this element of consistency, which I feel like, Cap, especially for you, in almost every single one of your appearances, there comes around this theme of, hey, do you like this? This is pretty great, isn't it? You have to do things in a relatively consistent manner. And it always ends up being like a part of the conversation. And I feel like we talked about it and it was like, you know what? Maybe this needs to be the kind of focal point for some people to really flush that out for some people. So that's going to be the main focus of today. So everyone, let's just get into it. Rightio. So, kicking things off, what for each of you, just individually, personally, has been the secret for your effective weight gain diet?
So I think for me, it's always about timing of calories and timing of nutrients. But I think I find that depending on the time, like if I'm eating at night, it has more of an effect than if I'm just eating in the morning. So at one point, I usually used to push a lot of meals in the morning, and I never really got much effect out of it. But if I'm eating more in the evenings, it makes a difference.
I think for me, understanding nutrition a little bit better and counting my macros, which is annoying when you hear anyone talking about them. But actually, as soon as you look into it and just see like what you need outside of your management calories and what you need to grow on top of that, that was like super helpful and where I started seeing the most growth.
And then I would say for me, I could sum it down to one word, which would be enjoyment. Enjoying the foods that you are eating is a big part of being able to keep on that muscle and fat and mass. If you're shoving in stuff that you don't enjoy, like like a boiled turkey breast or like a shitty burger from McDonald's to like try to put on weight, and you're not really, enjoying it, then it's gonna be easier for you to not stay consistent.
Yeah, I definitely burnt myself out with just bland ground turkey and rice. I can't even look at ground turkey again.
The consistency is like the bane of my existence, because like I can push myself pretty well for like a single day, right? But then I kind of get that sort of food hangover the next day. I feel like shit, so I'm not eating as much the next day. And then like I say, it's a work day, so my opportunity to eat at work only comes in a certain lull in the workload. And like, people said, well, why don't you keep snacks with you? I'm like, I'm pushing a med cart, guys. Like, I can't keep snacks on a med cart. That's against the health code. And like, my patients don't want to see me shoving my like Cheetos in my face while I'm trying to hand them their pills either. Like, that's not a good look. And then also the thing that I noticed when I was working out and I was actually trying to build muscle, if I look up like, okay, what's the fastest way to put on weight? How many calories, blah, blah, blah. And, when they give me like a rough meal plan, it's like, eat 10 grams of this, 30 grams of that. And I'm like, I don't know what a gram looks like. Tell me what the fuck, is that 2 chicken breasts? Is that 3 burgers? Yeah, give me a better visual reference than that.
I'm just going to kill this question and we can move on with the conversation. So for me, the secret to keeping consistent and kind of making things happen more than anything is it all centers around goals for me. How am I going to get from point A to point B? And like thiccbro mentioned, macros are very important, especially if you're trying to put on muscle, because you have to get the right amount of protein at the very least, in addition to, carbs and fats, etc. But I'm very much a creature of habit. I like to set it and forget it. And so I try to make it as easy for myself as possible to be able to make these big goals happen. And that happens with a lot of smaller incremental goals along the way.
Yeah, but can I do that without having to eat a bunch of cottage cheese and
Always the cottage cheese with you
Well, I'm
guys.
sorry, it's
I swear.
disgusting. It's
I
curdled
mentioned
milk.
I mentioned cottage cheese one time on the pod, and y'all will never let me live it down.
I
Okay,
know,
for
I
the other
know, I know.
panelists, since I've been here as almost as many episodes as the host, for the other panelists, how do you feel about cottage cheese? I thought it was an economical, an easy way to get in some protein. Do I eat it a lot anymore? No, but when I was in grad school, you bet I did.
I
Yeah,
love
that's a big
it.
negative.
No.
Really? See, I put it in my eggs in the morning, so you don't really get the gross consistency. And then sometimes I put it on toast with like honey and like red pepper flakes, and it gives it kind of like a burrata taste.
Okay. Dear listeners, what are your thoughts on cottage cheese? Sound off in whatever fucking comments of wherever. Let us know. Write into us at thecaptainbara@gmail.com and help us prove that Capy's a liar. It's terrible. It's disgusting. No, it's fine. But it's interesting you mentioned that because, Romy, you had mentioned about like junk food and that kind of burnout on junk food, and I feel like we end up talking about this all the fucking time. Like, yes, the fantasy is eat all this food, binge all this, but like, uh, the food ain't always that good. You're like, could we get like when I was like the young age that I was, when I was first fantasizing about being fat, my vision was like a big bellied Bubba at the fucking dining table, like Thanksgiving vibes, with like the plate piled high with like fantastic homemade food. Right? Like that's the vision, not like Homer Simpson in a muumuu eating popcorn out of a trash bag in the alleyway. Like, that's not selling me on the fantasy. And it's no shade to the people who would do, but very clearly there is like, there's more to the story than just imbibing on junk. And as much as I might rinse cottage cheese, like, if it does the job, all power to you. Ain't gonna step on that. But Preston, there was something I wanted to ask you about before. You had mentioned timings, and I feel like this is one of those concepts that like my mind goes back to when I'm like 15 in fucking high school learning basic biology, and it's like at times of the day there's metabolism and it's bullshit and I don't give a fuck because I'm like doodling in my book because I don't give a shit. But like, what do you mean by timings? Tell us more about like what does that mean for you?
So, I mean, in terms of like muscle building, for example, uh, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to shuttle a glycogen into the muscle before workout. So you'll see guys like big guys at the gym, they'll usually eat something like Pop Tarts or eat something really sugary before they're going to lift because they want to be able to shuttle that sugar into uh, your blood system quickly. And that's why it's so effective. I think in terms of like trying to put on weight in general or gaining in general, is that you do it like by eating it at night. I think gives it more of a chance to just sort of residually hang out on the body as opposed to like get burnt off.
But what about digestive problems from eating that late at night?
uh, it's I've definitely gone through phases where it affects me more. I don't know. I think part of it is I don't actually in my household we don't really cook with a lot of salt. Like everything is really heavily spiced, but not a lot of salt. So unless I'm like traveling somewhere or visiting someone who does cook with a lot of salt, that'll affect me. But just on a typical day, it's not been a big issue.
I can speak to the digestive issues of eating late at night, though. One thing I do is if I'm feeling the heartburn coming up, I take omeprazole. Esomeprazole also works. Ask your doctor about either. And taking some fiber capsules as well really helps
Mm.
things just kind of move along. And I feel like the fiber tends to absorb a lot of the nastiness that might give you trouble at night.
Yeah, fiber is a big thing. Like, I would really recommend that.
I think on the other side of like timing is like having to get all of the calories in and eat throughout the day is like important for me to like wake up early so I can eat that breakfast and then the 3 lunches and then dinner and then bedtime snack. Because if I don't, I wake up late. And it's just like I'm constantly eating and I'm not hungry. So it's like just making sure you have enough time to get all the meals in, or you're shoving your face to hit all the macros before bed. And then the acid reflux happens.
When it comes to consistency with, all of your situations, like how do you deal with the kind of burnout that happens from it? The kind of like the repetitiveness of it. And like we were talking earlier about how like you get sick of certain foods. Like Thick Bro, you were
Flavor
saying like you
fatigue,
can't look at turkey anymore.
flavor
Huh?
fatigue, and texture
Yeah,
fatigue.
flavor fatigue and texture fatigue and all those things. Because like I swear to God, like on a good night where I can push myself and I feel like proud of the progress I've made and the calories I've consumed. Then there are days when like I feel like I can't do any of it. And it's kind of like that moment in Barbie where she wakes up and they're like, is it those irrepressible thoughts of death? I'm like, it's those irrepressible thoughts of thinness that's keeping me down today.
I was gonna say, if you do have a moment of burnout, like I definitely have those moments where I just take the day off. Like if it's really just that much of a struggle, like take the moment off to like have have your mental freedom from it for a moment before like hitting it again.
I think for me, I make sure I don't eat the same thing for those like multiple meals a day. Like I'll have chicken and rice one meal, and then I'll do like ground turkey and potatoes another meal, and I'll do like protein pasta and meatballs another meal. So it's like making sure I'm not just doing chicken and rice all day.
Yeah, I'd say really going through and planning out what you're going to eat and making sure that there's diversity in that throughout the week. Like my partner and I, we sit down Monday of every week and figure out what we're going to need for this week's meals and stuff because we pretty much just cook at home. We don't really go out too much, and when we do, it's we get pretty good stuff. So yeah, I think really just diversifying what you're taking in. We shop pretty locally too. That's another big thing where we're getting local fruits and vegetables and meats and things, but there's always new and different stuff, so that burnout doesn't really happen, which is really nice.
I think the other thing that I sometimes either don't want to confront or don't want to admit to is that like the environment that I can be in is also a big can affect it because like I live with my boyfriend and a roommate, and the boyfriend only eats one meal a day, and the roommate doesn't eat at all. So like I'm the only person in the house who eats with any kind of consistency. But that means I'm usually the one who is always like, if there's going to be food, I'm the one that has to cook it most of the time. And I think that's the other problem that I run into is like I just get fucking tired of cooking. So like I could DoorDash everything, but then that's going to be hella expensive. And I don't want to eat nothing but fast food and takeout. I want a home cooked meal too. But I'm just sort of in a place where I've got all these different factors going on, and I can't seem to focus enough to get to that consistency.
Yeah, so regarding like burnout with food, I think variety is key, as other panelists have said. And like Preston mentioned, the importance of rest really can't be overstated. We live in such a, hustle and grind culture that sometimes that permeates other things we do in life. Sometimes you have to take a break. You can't always have your foot on the gas pedal. And the day I heard that advice, it was like the clouds parted and I could see the sun. Like in anything, even as, hedonistic and fun as what we do can be, you have to give yourself a second to breathe.
I will say something that comes up for me in this conversation is how much diversity of approach there has to be, not just for the fact that everyone here is different, but also for the fact that how do you overcome these things? Like, you really do have to kind of look at all the different factors to really get the best out of it. And it's a conversation point that I think we're coming across in this season. I know we talk about this, there's these unintentional macro conversations that tend to pepper through, but I feel like this is a conversation that feeds into that, ironically. This idea that the gaining journey, no matter whether it's muscle, fat, or both, cannot simply be the idea of the eating or the lifting. Like, we talk about this, that gaining is a lifestyle. And so actually it is all the factors of your lifestyle that factor into your growth. Oh, it's about getting enough sleep. It's about maintaining hygiene. It is about taking mental health breaks. Those things have nothing to do with eating or lifting or doing the things that we typically associate with gaining. And yet all three of those are very much tied to our body's ability to absorb the food and keep our appetite and hunger up. And so while they are not part of the direct or what we perceive to be actual contributing factors to the weight gain, they are very much active participants in the wider narrative. I've always said that me and prioritizing my mental health has forever and above been the greatest contributor or detractor from my weight gain journey. So I feel like that can't be understated when you'll say it's good to take a mental health day. You are still prioritizing your gaining on a day when you take control of your mental health and you say, I'm not going to binge today. I'm not going to overeat. I'm just going to eat a fucking fruit salad because it's hot as balls and I don't want to think about eating protein right now. Like, that is still an active part of that gaining journey. But to bring it back around to Tim's point before, living in an environment where things maybe feel like they are hurdles to that situation. Does anyone want to weigh in with some ideas on how we navigate that a bit?
Yes, jumping right in on the issue of environment. Environment is so key and crucial. And as you were saying, James, they're the key activities that enable growth, whether it's lifting, whether it's eating, sleeping, but you also have to enable yourself to be able to do those things. And that requires maintenance in other regards in your life, whether that's making sure that, the dishes in the sink are clean and taken care of, making sure the groceries get done, these things that seem like tedious menial chores often amount to allowing us to do the things that we want to do. And so I remind myself that, sometimes when I don't want to do these things, there's kind of a greater good at play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been blessed that I can work from home. So having my kitchen right here is super helpful, but I don't know how people bodybuild and go into the office. That is just a lot of meal prep and plastic containers that I don't think I'd be able to dedicate myself to do that. And I get to work out in the middle of the day, so that's super helpful.
It's mostly about cooking a ton on Sundays and then just having to like get through the week of like the same meal for lunches.
So I'm curious, like everybody on the panel today, like all of you have had successes with your gains. All of you have like done extensive meal prepping, and you know all kinds of nutrient information and what kind of foods to eat. So like, what are some fads that you guys have run across that like you think like that haven't actually worked? Like it's just something that seems really popular to do, but doesn't actually work.
So what's kind of common in I feel like a lot of like when gay men are trying to hire a trainer, trainers will always try to make their approach seem unique when the reality is it's just the same science that everyone has always been using. So you'll see someone come out with like the shrimp diet, where it's like, oh, my trainer's got me, eating shrimp like, 3 meals a day every week, and that's going to be my path to success. It's going to get the gains, and it's like, no, you're just eating a protein of a different type.
Bouncing off of that, though, it's really helpful when you do find, a few different sources of protein that you can consistently bounce between. Like I love salmon personally. I don't get tired of it. And so that's commonly a go-to, whether it's smoked salmon, some kind of sushi, or a fillet that I put in the oven for sure. I don't know so much about fads per se that I can think of, although actually, come to think, Boost. People in the community always talk about Boost.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't I can't personally stand this stuff. Does anybody have any experiences using Boost?
Yes. That's what I was. That's the same thing that I was thinking of. So I was like, I'm coming off of this where I was like, I don't have really any fads for like muscle gaining, but what in like the fat gaining community has been one that's been like consistent over the last 15 years, and it's Boost. And I was talking to about it with another gainer recently, and was just like, yeah, like you can do it, but then after like three, it's like your stomach feels awful and you're miserable, and then it's like a day of dealing with that. So it's like kind of it all just goes to waste. Like you'll get people out there be like, oh, like chug 5 boosts and like blah blah blah, and it's like, no, it feels terrible. I'm not gonna do that.
Not to mention how many vitamins are in each one, and like anything over 4 is like too much, like overdosing on these vitamins and minerals that are in there. So yeah, I mean, I used to do boost all the time. I would do 4 a day when I was like peak gaining, but I would spread them out like in between meals. But I would also eat my regular, like it's only for supplemental gaining, in my opinion. Like it just helps 4 of them get over 2,000 calories, just like easy. But yeah, when the fantasy kicks in and people are like, yeah, chug 10, you're like, absolutely not. I will throw up all over you.
I think the most I've ever been able to do was 5, and that was through a funnel. But it wasn't the high calorie either. It was just the regular like plus version, that's just like regular consistency because those high calorie ones, they're like glue and they sit in your stomach like glue.
Listen, I've only had a half a one time, and all I could think of is that one time that Bianca Del Rio said, well, diarrhea is a water-based lubricant. So, listen, I'm not trying to kink shame people who are out here having a good time. That's not a part of me and my gaining fantasy. For me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and we will not be doing this on this good day. Thank you, amen, and hallelujah. Be blessed. But no, I think this is a really important conversation again about that, delineating fantasy from reality. And, Thick, that point of you can consume too much. I mean, this also comes back to a point. I'm sure that if endless muscle gaining were doable, you could probably just bully yourself to be like, I'll eat a fucking whole cow today. Brilliant. I'll get all the protein from that and then I'll gain even faster. But after a certain point, I'm sure it's like, you can't get your body to like consume and withhold more of the shit you need. And if you could, that would be great, but you can't. There's like natural limitations to it. Like people don't even realize you could literally drink too much water. Like your cells begin to diffuse. So like too much of anything is never good. But like I don't know. Does this come across on the muscle gaining side? Because obviously on the fat side, it's just eat until you puke if you have to. But like on the muscle side, do you find that there is a culture of people being like, just eat more meat, just fucking lift more until it fucking kills you? Like, does that happen?
Oh yeah. Oh definitely. Like especially when you see these guys who are off ceiling who are like putting on a lot of size, like they'll convince themselves, they'll convince other people that like you just need to be shoveling more down to get there. Oh yeah. It's just as prevalent.
Yeah. It's mostly like protein, right? Like your body can only process a certain amount of protein per meal at one time. So that's also going back to the timing thing, where in order to absorb the most throughout the day is like having little meals, but eating 17 chickens, your body's really only going to absorb, was it like 40 to 50 grams of it or something at a time? And then, yeah, waste everything else. So it's like you're forcing yourself to eat all this and you're really not getting the benefit that you think you are.
And that speaks to the issue of variety that we were bringing up earlier. And one thing that helped me along my journey was really being intentional about switching up my protein sources. Because if you're just having chicken all the time, you're not going to be very happy. Also, going back to the question of trends and fads, I just thought of one for the muscle boys. How do y'all feel about chicken smoothies?
Oh, so nasty looking. Like I've never tried it, but I've definitely seen like some pros out there who do it. It's no.
I'm sorry. Stop,
Chicken smoothie?
stop everything. Captain Bara of the 5th Brigade of the entire continent of South America, a capybara made human flesh, explain yourself immediately. What the fucking fuck do you mean, chicken smoothie?
Well, yeah, on social media, you'll see these videos of these really big lifter guys, and they'll get either a rotisserie chicken or several cans of canned chicken, dump them in a blender, maybe put a little Mio water in there or something, and
Yep.
blend them together and just chug these enormous smoothies. To which I say, that's disgusting. Eat your fucking chicken like a fucking grown man. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so I did it once. I wanted to see what it was. It was like, if these guys can do it, it can't be that bad. It literally tasted like vomit.
Huh?
I will say I only did chicken and water. I didn't put anything else in it. And I've seen people do like berries and stuff, like just adding it to like a smoothie in the morning. It doesn't, I mean, regular chicken doesn't really have a taste. It just makes it a little bitter. But one of my friends here does it regularly. He's a gymnast, and his like kids that he coaches knows his chicken smoothies. But he does it with spinach and berries and all that. So it's not just chicken and water.
That
So
sounds
it is
less
a thing.
revolting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah, but
slightly less revolting than what I've seen on social media. I mean, you know, a lot of times people go viral for the shock factor, right? Maybe there is a middle ground to these chicken smoothies, but I won't be downing anytime soon. Any of them, I'll tell you that.
it's hard for me to empathize because I'm a guy that can sit there and literally eat an entire like rotisserie chicken and like still like be able to eat more. So being like I gotta like shake it up, like oh god, like it's like a whole like Thanksgiving meal. Like what are you doing?
well, that sounds a lot more fun than pureeing it because like that's what we do for people who can't swallow. We puree their food. So yeah, like I've seen a chicken smoothie, quote unquote, but I have to spoon feed it to somebody. Like,
Yeah, before the chicken smoothie, it was raw eggs. It was you'd see these guys try to down like 10 raw eggs in a.
Dear Lord Jesus, we come before your throne today in repentance for sin. We, the people, recognize our failings, and we have to ask you to come into our lives again to save us from ourselves and chicken smoothies. Fuck. Oh. Ugh. Anyways, amen. Okay. Well, listen, that was an adventure. Chicken smoothies. I
you
don't
know what
know.
that makes me think of, James? I know you didn't like the movie, but you remember in camp where the girl had her jaw wired shut and she had to eat that she was drinking something and they're like, "What the hell are you drinking?" She goes, "Chicken breast."
No. No, ma'am. Um, that has just punched every other thought out of my head. Chicken smoothies, oh my god. But listen, it's nice to know that as hot as y'all are, your side of the tracks is just as fucked as ours is when it comes to abusing the self with food. So thank you for humanizing the muscle gaining experience. Really really appreciate that. Um, Listen, I want to ask here because obviously, Thick, you had mentioned macros right near the start of this, and this has to be one of those things that, like, I, as a human, have heard of them. Do not know the first cunt thing about fucking I know macro micro. I know bigs and littles. I know the crushing and the stomping and the eating of the little jelly babies, but I don't know what this means in terms of your muscle gain stuff. Couldst thoueth pleaseth explaineth to meeth what is a macro, what do, who by, inform, please.
Yeah. So macros are broken down into carbs, fats, and proteins. And then everybody's are different based off of your maintenance calories that you need, and just what your goals are. So there's hundreds of websites that have the special formula where you put in like your activity level, your height, your weight, what your goals are, and then that kind of spits out the magic three numbers of how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbs, and how many grams of fats that you need per day. And then it's kind of just, to me, it gets very annoying where you have to weigh everything out. That's kind of how you find out what like 56 grams of whatever is. Now it's like a game of like, is this 28 grams of cheese? And then you put it in, and it's like, yes, it is. No, it's not. So you kind of like gamify it. Um, but and then it's all about just like tweaking it, right? Like you do it for a little bit and you see, okay, this isn't getting me, I'm not gaining any weight on this number, so let me increase across the board a little bit more. So that's really the basics of macros on a very basic level.
Going off of that, I know for like a lot of the muscle gaining type folks, we tend to make sure that we hit at least a certain minimum of protein per day. Roaming, I wanted to ask you, what is your approach like? I guess, do you focus primarily on caloric intake or what's your approach like?
I am not a tracker of any sort when it comes to calories or macros or anything. I was thinking about it while listening to you guys talk about what kind of muscle gainer I would say I am. And I would say that, when it comes to macros and eating foods, the muscle is kind of secondary to the fat for me. Whereas I enjoy lifting merely because I like lifting for the sake of lifting. I don't really have a goal with getting, a look or like the amount I can lift. I like going to the gym because I like the feeling of lifting. So that comes the same thing with my food philosophy, where it's like I come home after the gym and I'm going to eat until I'm full, but I'm going to eat, good quality food that's snuck more calories and oils and things in it. So when it comes to planning for me, it really just comes about if I'm getting the diversity of the food that I want and the quality that I want.
Could you speak more to how you enhance your meals for your goals?
Yeah, so I think it might be easiest if I describe what a nightly dinner is for me. And that comes with usually about 16 ounces or more of some sort of protein. With like a smoked salmon, I'll put, olive oil on it and just a little bit more fat there. Nothing more where it's going to be like drenched in sauces and stuff where it's not going to be enjoyable or taste super good. But then I'll have a salad, but in that salad there'll be feta cheese and a garlic confit with more oil and a little bit of vinaigrette. So there's more calories in there. Sauteed vegetables and oil. There's more calories there with like oils and fats that are snuck in to a healthier option. And then, fruits and bread, and then bread. Put on that bread some oil and some cheese and some meat, a little bit of smoked meat or anything. So there's more calories and fat being stuck in there.
That's fantastic. Can I just say, as much as I know it's easy to rinse the Brits for like bad food culture, my mother tells me to no end about how when she was a poor bitch growing up as one of 6 siblings, like the Sunday special was drippings on toast, which was quite literally they would do roast beef, joint, whatever, directly on the grill plate in the oven throughout the week, drip into the pan, and then you heat up that pan, and then you soak the bits of bread, and you then fry that. So it's kind of like well, it's not like a French toast situation, but it's British toast. It's soaked full of flavor and deliciousness, and then you put things on top of it, and it's not actually terrible. Like, obviously, it's a very poor thing, and it's touted as such. But when you think of it from the perspective of like, this is a slice of bread filled to the brim with like meat, oil, fat, and then flavorings. Like, it doesn't taste bad, but is also a calorie bomb. And the reason why it like worked for a lot of poor people with fucking huge amounts of kids is because you only needed to have a slice and a half to feel full as a gook throughout the day. So like, I feel like a point that we should discuss at some stage here as well is the economy of things, because current economic situation, food costs a lot of money, and all the people who are like obsessed with junk food, it's like, well, how am I going to afford? Baby, there are ways that you can do shit in the home. I promised you, I swear to you, this is doable, but we've got to think a little bit outside the box. Preston, curious to hear from you about like your take on all that.
Oh, well, like I said, for us, it's mostly just like cooking in bulk on the weekends that lasts throughout the week. It also kind of just based off timing, that's the only way we could really get it done. It's like between like work, lifting, and getting home. It's usually like we're at home at 10 o'clock and you only have like 1 or 2 hours to basically just eat and go to bed. So yeah, I think that's just the importance for us. It's just trying to get it all done, grocery shopping, and cooking being done on Saturday and Sundays.
I like all of that. I am known on Instagram as someone who like cooks a lot of that food and then like posts it and share it. And it interests me substantially how many gainers, and I don't mean to say this like it's popular people or anything like that, because it's everyone, right? It interests me how many people of a certain large size will comment and respond to that and be like, oh my god, that looks so good. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a meal that looked that nice. And there is a little part of my spirit that breaks where I'm like, you look fantastic, but is your gaining journey just like gouging yourself on like boiled rice? Like, what are we doing here? Like, flavor, like the mouth, the tongue, the ability to taste, that is 1/5 of your entire ability to sense and perceive the fucking universe that we exist in. And like, I feel we owe it to ourselves to have good flavor passing through the mouth hole. Just
I
personally.
think I think it also comes down to what the primary reason is that you began gaining. If it's for a certain size or a goal or a look, you might not be as concerned with how you get there than you are than actually getting there. For me personally, gaining has been really about enjoying food again and being able to eat what I want when I want. Which for me, luckily, I have found very, very easily to eat like a large amount of food. Um, so I think it comes down to, why are you on this journey? What is your do you have a goal? What is your goal?
If you ever figure out a way to distill your appetite in a pill form, roaming, let us know, because like I'm not trying to call you out or anything, but you kind of have a reputation in the community for being a bottomless pit.
Do you know what? Let's bring that up right here because it's a fantastic thing. It is a known thing, and as Tim expresses, it's something that people can feel envious of. Is
Um,
that something that for you you've been blessed with, or is that something that just by virtue of life you have like trained yourself to be capable of? In which case, if that is so, how'd you do it? Share the wisdom with the people.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of my genetic background and then also my personal experiences growing up. I'm Russian, so obviously there's that Slavic background where it's like, we can find food, we're gonna eat it. It's been a lot for our history. And then personally, I was a swimmer for about 12 years, and that is a large amount of calorie intake that is required just for the amount of calories that you're burning. So I have eaten big and large since I've been a kid, since I've been swimming, or since I swam. And so that ability to continue to eat big carried over after I finished my swimming career and began more just lifting. So I think that's kind of where my appetite abilities come from, or the bottomless pit comes from.
Well, there you go. A lifetime of build up, y'all. So if you want that, get started.
Speaking to the what you're saying, roaming, some kind of physical activity really does help. It might seem counterintuitive to a lot of folks, but physical activity helps build up an appetite. It's magical.
Yeah,
Another great way to get your appetite going, depending on where you live and the legality, cannabis. That was a good one for me. And for me, my two keys for appetite are physical activity and cannabis intake.
yeah, that's a big one as well. That one just even catalyzes the hunger even further, which is like crazy.
So really, we're coming back to the point of, it's easy to look at the specific of eat food, lift weight, and go, oh, person has better ability than me. I don't know how to get there. But in reality, it probably comes down to factors happening outside of that space, how we set ourselves up for success. Consistency is not just the eating of the food and the lifting of the weight, it is also the lifestyle by which we facilitate all of these things together. I mean, Thick, to pivot to you here, because I know that you've expressed a sense of going on different levels of that journey. Like in times past, maybe you've gone maybe a little bit more the fat side, now you're doing more the muscle side. Like, how has that been for you to pivot to then developing more of that routine to kind of getting yourself up to scratch for it?
I think back to something that was said earlier was also like just being able to enjoy it. That's like the biggest thing. I don't like to eat. I like the taste of food, but I don't like to eat. It's like a chore. So trying to get everything that I need to be a gainer for a belly was a lot more. So that's why the boost helped. But kind of what you just said of like, there's so many different factors outside of what we see on social media that we need to take into account, and like stop comparing ourselves of like, why is he getting so big and I'm not? That's like the really big thing that helped me of like, I don't know what their genetics are. I don't know what gear they're on. And then I don't know how long they've been lifting for or how long they've been training, you know? So it's like, why am I, my new mantra that a friend told me was like, comparison is just the thief of joy. So it's like, stop comparing and just enjoy your journey. Like that's, and just try to get there. You can, obviously, I use all these guys as inspiration, you know, to be like, I want to be that big, but I'm not going to be like, I'm so small anymore. It helped. Therapy has helped a lot.
But you know, that's a fabulous point. And I was just going to say comparison is the thief of joy. And I feel like, again, as a community, we need to find more opportunities not to compare. We need to uplift and celebrate fucking everybody at every stage of their journey. And, you know, Preston, to rope you here in as well, I look at you and think of you as quite an iconic muscle gainer with the way you've grown and what you've achieved. Like, when you think about what has helped galvanize you on your muscle journey and those other factors, like, how has that been for you, like, throughout the time that you've been doing all this?
And I have a follow-up question to that before you answer. How do you respond to everyone reaching out to you for like advice on like how you got there and that like how they can be as big and sexy as you? Because I'm sure you get a lot.
Well, so like when people sort of ask questions, I think people are expecting there to be like a magic, like a magic to it that's not there, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like you have to do the work in the gym and you have to eat, right? If you're not doing those two things, it's not going to happen. And I think people have a belief that it's going to happen quickly, and the reality is it happens very slowly. You know, like it took me 10 years, 12 years to put on the muscle. So like muscle's just very slow at growing unless you're just genetically special. Like, so at least for me, it was like, it's something I wanted, and it's something I just sort of dedicated myself to, like very slow incremental improvements. And then sort of as far as my journey in general, I think what you see is just me becoming more comfortable with myself over time, right? Like I think I always knew I wanted the size, but I think when I was younger, I thought the accepted avenue for that was just to be lean and muscular, as opposed to now where I feel more comfortable to sort of be a thicker version of myself.
I love that. It's almost like you've been consistent over the last decade or so, if that's perhaps a theme that's come through in all of this conversation today. And I think what I'm loving as well about this conversation, if I can say, is everyone asking each other questions, because I feel like this is something else that we really struggle with in our community, is the sharing of information. And I feel like there is that extent to which people can be forthcoming, and that's wonderful. But then sometimes people can feel like the secrets are kept behind closed doors, or that the truth is kept only for a special few. But I think this really points to the fact that there is more simplicity out there to it, ironically. Like, yes, doing things can be challenging and it can require a lot of attention to kind of make it happen. But then once you kind of set yourself up for that, just kind of get into it. And something else I heard recently, if I can say, people talk about motivation a lot, and this conversation point's been coming up more and more, that motivation does not actually exist. Like, it's this false idea of how do you get yourself up out of bed to do things in the morning? And the thing is, it does not exist. Motivation is not real. Like, the thing that carries you through when you're feeling unmotivated is the fact that every day you show up for yourself and you develop that into a habit. So on the days when you're like, I don't know if I can be bothered with this today, that generalized sense of you do this consistently every day is what carries you forward to doing it on the days that you're not motivated. And then, like we've been saying, on days when you do need to take a break, that's again part of that system. Taking the break is still forward planning for the future. So,
I mean, as far as motivation goes, I mean, looking at pictures of other big dudes helps. Actually, hanging out at events with other big people helps.
once again, that point of, how do you do the gaining or the muscle thing for yourself? The trick is not always just in the eating or the lifting. It's building community and going to events. It's looking at photos online and developing motivation, or inspiration in that way. Like, there's so much more to the story than just the thing that maybe you feel discouraged by. There's so much more you can do to help yourself and set yourself up for success.
There really is a lot to be said about community. And one thing I learned from my very short-lived drag career in my early 20s was if you see somebody doing something that you like or wish you could be doing, ask questions. And I remember early on in my own journey, beefing up, I asked you, Preston, about what do you do, big guy? And I remember, you mentioned, yeah, I have 3 protein shakes a day and I space them out. And that actually helped form the basis for my current approach. So, it's kind of like you were saying, there's nothing really new under the sun, but it is good to reach out to those who are doing what you want to be doing, or maybe what you're doing perhaps at a higher level, and seeing how they got from square one to wherever they might be now.
I was just going to say, that's what I love about attending events, is because I feel galvanized when I'm around other gainers, and I get energy from them, and in-person encouragement is always my preferred method. I know that there are people who would they encourage each other online and everything. Problem is that I could sit down in front of a camera with someone and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat all this stuff. But then as I lose my momentum and my will, I could just push the rest of it aside and be like, see, I'm finished. I know me. So I've always done better with in-person encouragement.
Yeah, I think that's also part of the reason why I shifted gears from just belly to muscle, was I was tired of doing it alone. It was also kind of mid-COVID, so I had to do it alone. But I was like, I don't like eating for people on camera. I don't like just having my belly on videos that people like. No one was meeting up in person, so I was like, I feel, and I guess this kind of goes to the self-acceptance thing that Preston said, of muscle is a little more widely accepted on the apps. But a caveat of that, I just added gainer to my profile, and people are coming out of the woodwork. So
oh baby,
it's also kind of the other side too. It's once you accept it and embrace it, other people are like, yeah, I love your belly. So it's
one of my friends told me that he came out as a gainer on Grindr, and all of a sudden people were hitting him up constantly.
Baby, let me tell you, the fucking and not even just chases, bear chases. I'm talking gainer chases. Bitches are out there and they want it, and the fact that you would grace them with your presence on a platform that is not built for you, they are obsessed with. So it is absolutely worth it to have a little bit of that ownership. And I also think that idea of pivoting for that sense of acceptance is not a bad thing. Sometimes I feel within gaining, there is this idea of no, we can't have weight loss because it's terrible and we should all kill ourselves. But no, sometimes it's very valid. And the way it is valid is if that's what you fucking want. Because gaining is valid because it's what you want. So why is it any different to lose weight or to pivot to muscle or to pivot to fat or to do whatever the fuck you want? We are all experiencing this glorious transformation journey. We get to witness it in real time. Why would we caveat and judge or try to put bits to that? I don't know. That's weird to me.
Yeah. I just posted a comparison picture the other day, and the amount of people that I got that responded to say, and not to call anyone out if you're listening and you did this, but it annoyed me. I was like, oh, you looked better before, or oh, you were still sexy in the first one. And I was like, I didn't ask. That's not what I look like now. I was just showing you my progress. But I'm glad that you don't like me now. And also, the belly's coming back. So
yeah,
but yeah, I was a big pet peeve for me when someone's like, you looked fine before.
Yeah, it's
cool.
It's weird. People feel like there is an open invitation to comment. It's no, you're lucky I'm sharing this with you. You should be saying thank you, not any other fucking thing. Literally, how dare you? I want to take this opportunity just because we've got all of y'all here. what are some aspects of muscle gaining or, like roaming in your case, like, kind of fat and everything gaining together? Like, what is an aspect of all this that you feel like has not been brought up on the pod before, that since you are in a safe space with like-minded individuals that could be brought up and discussed that you would like to do so?
Well, for roaming, was there a certain size that you got to where people started harassing you about it? Like civilians started harassing you about it?
Do you mean like online or like family and
Either
stuff like that?
in person or
Um,
online.
Not, I mean, family, no. My family's been very, very nice about it and doesn't really talk about it. Come from that, Midwest family where we don't really like to talk about things like that. So that's always not been an issue. I'm sure things are said behind my back and whatnot, but like I don't really care when it comes to that. But online, because I started my online presence for gaining probably 6 or 7 years ago when I like was actually like 19, 20 and was like still relatively skinny. Um, but I fortunately never got like consistent like people hating on me. The one thing that I can remember like recently was like there were some like troll accounts on Twitter like a year ago that like found me and were like just like saying like, oh my God, this is like so disgusting, blah blah blah. And that's just like for me, it's just kind of funny at this point than it is like hurtful. Because I'm very after having been in this community now for over 5 years or over almost 10 years now, like I'm very secure with like my body. So and usually when people are the ones that are saying shit are the ones that have like, zero followers and no profile pic. So it's like, I don't give a fuck what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm more open to using the block button these days.
I have actually in my career I've like not blocked those people because I want people to see it. And I like when people like go after them and be like defend it because then it shows that like there's a solidarity there within the gaming community that like, there are people here that like, no, this is beautiful. Fucking get out of our space. If you don't like it, leave. And I like that. I like that communal aspect of that and that being expressed virtually.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been seeing more of that in recent months, and it makes me very happy to see. It feels like in the last few years, there was this sort of weird acceptance of like, yeah, I would defend you, but low key, we all know that gaining is fucked. And it's like, that's such a weird thing to me when so many people like go out of their way to get to supersize, and yet there is this like internalized fat phobia of like, well, I am disgusting and I should kill myself. Like, I have never understood this. So the fact that there are people now who are like, no, fuck your motherfuckers, this is hot, this is who I am, shut it and move it. And like, I don't know, it feels like there are so many more like public figures who seem to be leaning into the love of the dad bod or thick curvy women and are not making like a pick me special about it. They're just like, no, I happen to like this and it's a cool thing. And it doesn't need to be more than that. And I feel like that is just helping glaze past all of that.
I will say with that, I've seen fat and dad bod acceptance trickle a little bit since we've come out of the pandemic. I've seen people be a little bit, or like more media personalities kind of shift back into being like a little bit more, all right, well, now that, we're out of it and everybody can lose the 5, 10 pounds of, COVID weight that everybody gained. Like, but I'm hopeful that we're like still on that trajectory.
Well, and now we have to contend with Ozempic. So
God, those are the ads popping up in my feed every other post.
They know that you're a fat bitch roaming.
That's just my search history.
I was just wondering if anybody else wound up in one of those adverts for male Spanx. I'm just trying to find out if I was the only one.
Yeah, I know Bong Belly Gainer got.
No,
Oh, he did.
yeah, I don't have the male Spanx.
It was like I did have people ask me about that lately, like, would I be into having that? And like, such a weird, like, no, I hadn't considered it.
Well, I think the thing is, it's not people being asked. It's like these like fake companies, like ironically pulling gainer vids of gainers like shaking their gut because where else are you gonna find free content of fat dudes like showing off the belly? And then they show like The other dude with like a bad AI face, like looking slim as they put like the Spanx on, and it's like whatever shitty product that people are trying to flog. Whenever I see it and I recognize the person, like I send the link to them just to be like, hi, you might want to talk to them. I don't know what the legality is because I think with TikTok you can just download shit for free and like no one's gonna stop you, but like I don't know.
Yeah,
There
I
are a
never
lot of
had the Spanx, but I did have the like hair removal.
Oh,
Somebody took my stuff for hair removal, and I was like, this ain't yours. And I definitely don't want to remove my hair. So I just spam their comments.
I've seen a lot of gainers content stolen, in particular for GIF search engines. Like if you search like belly or like fat guy on like for like GIFs,
Oh yeah,
then
give
like
me fiction comes up every time.
yeah, yeah, give me fiction comes up, Porkins comes up, or girth or whatever. Um yeah, but everybody, yeah, it's like all this content from even like years ago, like 10 years ago. Like I remember seeing that like 10 years ago. It's like, wow, they're really, really taking that.
So, to circle to a point we kind of brought up before, and I know I talked a little bit about this, like the economy at the moment makes gaining a little bit more challenging. I wanted to ask for y'all, like, do y'all have any particular tips, tricks, frugal bits and pieces that might be good for listeners who are just trying to find a way to make the gains a little bit more affordable?
Costco. Costco is the biggest thing that's helped. Just buying a fuck ton of chicken for $2 a pound is very helpful. And then freezing it. Because also I found like if I buy in bulk of things that I can't freeze, I just waste it because I can't. So anything you can freeze.
Yeah, going off of thick, I always make sure to freeze as much of my like fruits and veggies as I can. Frozen veggies work just as well if you're trying to, make pasta or a casserole or just add a little green, a little flavor in. One big go-to for me is Aldi. Aldi's got excellent prices. Not that I'm sponsored by them or anything, but it has been a great way, in addition to Costco, for me to kind of make my dollar go further. Also, kind of something Roaming mentioned before, knowing what you're going to have ahead of time. If you have recipes in mind, knowing maybe which grocery store close to you has the best prices. Are there any sales? Are there any coupons you can use? I'm not a big couponer myself, but I do like to look around now and then. There's a protein cereal I really like, the Post brand protein cereal, if y'all have seen it around. Sometimes it goes on sale for half off. Those are the days I buy 10 boxes.
Ooh, if I can jump in here, a lot of what you were saying there, Cappy, trying to like find the grocery store that has things best for you. So my partner and I, we get a weekly delivery service through Tesco. A lot of the grocery stores here will do a home delivery. I have found, because I have crunched the numbers, I have kept the receipts and I have looked at them. What we spend on a home delivery is upwards of £40 cheaper per shop because we're not going in store. Because when you go in store, you're going in hungry and you go in with the whole, ooh, I could do something with this, or ooh, what about that? And you're not thinking frugally, you're not thinking structured. So, similar to what Cappy was saying about meals, we have a meal menu for every meal every day of the week. Breakfast, lunch, and tea. We have desserts we try. We have breakfast we try. We have snacks. We have all sorts. And we go through it every single week. We make sure it is on the food shop and nothing less. So, great thing to do if you are trying to be more financially minded is on things like that. It runs the total for you. You can see what you're spending and you can also plan shops ahead. You can then think, right, if I'm spending too much this week and spending less the next week, move some other higher priced items around. There are little things that you can do like that that can really, really help.
But I would definitely say do it directly through the store because third parties that deliver upcharge you an obnoxious amount. Someone left the receipt in the bag and I compared and I was pissed. That one receipt made me cancel my whole subscription. And I used to do it delivery through them every week. And I was like, how much am I spending? Absolutely not. I'm also a huge points whore. So I love like rewards from stores. And that one person did not put mine in. They put theirs in, so they were getting my points. And I was like, oh hell no. So always sign up for the rewards, people.
I would say in to gain economically or like on a budget, learning to cook can probably be one of your biggest helpers because you can make a box of or a box of pasta at home for so cheap. And then if you just know, a few things and how to make it taste good and what to add that'll make it taste just that much better, and you can make it at home versus like ordering DoorDash from an Italian restaurant, and then by the time it gets to you, it's cold and not that good. And then you have extra for later, or you know, you see it all and then you eat it all, like that sort of thing, where it's like, oh, I made too much, but you got to go somewhere. Um,
To add to that, like delivery cost is like between $2 and $4 these days. And I understand that that probably sounds like spare change when you think about going out and getting a coffee. But if you go to the grocery store and you are buying just simple shit like pasta, a jar of sauce, and like maybe some frozen veg bags, like that is the cost right there. Just the delivery charge that gets tacked on the end, it becomes an entire meal. A basic meal, but an entire meal. So when you look at the cost factor, it really, really adds up. Preston, what about you?
Like basically what everyone else has said. Like one of the things we started out, like me and my husband early on in our relationship, was he really learned to cook, and he really learned to cook well. And I think that's been like the big difference, is that just having that source of like home cooked food.
I can attest to the fact that Preston's husband does make a mean meal.
What I'm hearing is I need to find a husband to cook for me. Is how I get to your size. Got it. Cool. Noted. Thank you.
I love the advice we're hearing. Be frugal with your money, cook diverse foods, marry great cooks. Like there are so many wonderful things that we can do that could be a boon. Like for each of y'all, how do you characterize like your individual approach to what you do?
The way I would characterize my approach to growth is very much bodybuilding on my own terms. I always wanted to have really big muscles, but I wasn't always concerned with like being super lean or having abs. So I suppose you could call it somewhat of a hybrid gaining approach, in that I'm not going for perhaps the most conventional standards as a bodybuilder, but I'm not pure 100% like in like the chub sphere as a gainer per se.
I would describe like my goal is basically overfed powerlifter look.
That's a good look. Yeah, I'll say that's very much what I'm going for, I suppose, in another way of speaking.
That was my goal, and I never wanted abs, but I've decided that I do want to train for a bodybuilding show just to be able to say I did it. A lot of my friends did the marathon and I don't run. So I was like, why not keep growing? And then after that, off-season permabulk is the goal.
Plus, like what a lot of people don't tell you is like when you're coming off of a show like that, your body is so very insulin sensitive that the ability to put on weight post show is incredible.
Yeah, the post show, like just bloating, like from being so dehydrated, I think that transformation, one, is going to make some great content in before and afters, but I'm just excited to see that quick transformation because that's really what gets me going. So,
and then for me, I would probably circle back to the theme of like enjoyment when it comes to my gains for me, or like with both gaining and lifting, where it's I'm enjoying what I'm doing, so I'm gonna keep doing it. And I enjoy everything that comes with gaining as well, luckily. So like, this is me enjoying my body and who I am.
That's fantastic. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I just want to say thank you to each of you all for being open and vulnerable with your approaches, your philosophies on all of this, and I think just being candid with the people about the realities, because yes, we're talking muscle, we're also talking a little bit of fat, but this is just gaining in general. When we talk consistency, it comes down to how do you set yourself up for that success, and I think that's just been the overarching theme of all of this. So I want to say thank you to each of you, and I think that's it for another fabulous week here on Thicc Radio. Now, where can our listeners find each of you online?
You can find me at thecaptainbara on Instagram.
prestonbrok on Instagram.
thiccbro21 on all of the social media platforms.
At _roaming hog on Twitter. Because a barbecue joint took roaming hog. I want to know how if people at the barbecue joint have like seen my page. I would imagine people have mistakenly seen it, and I love that. I hope that I've converted a few. Like that's the goal.
They owe you a company discount.
They really do.
I think they should. To be fair, not to derail the end of this episode, but back when we started Thicc Radio, there was a fitness dude who also started a Thicc Radio, and I just kept thinking to myself, how camp? There is no way this man has not seen our content, and I wonder what this, jacked, straight, muscle dude thinks about all this fat foolishness. I have checked, though. I don't think he posts content on that podcast thread anymore, so I think we officially won that battle. But that is it for another fantastic week here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, please share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BlueSky at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at thiccymouse. You can also look us up on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Thicc Radio, or at our website at podpage.com/thickradio. If you want to submit a voice note or become a financial supporter of the show, you can find the links in the show notes, and you can always write to us at thethickradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Enter app podcast produced by Stan and Thicky Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Loki2.
Our theme song is provided by Spotify.